All right. First and foremost, we're gonna give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High God Yahweh. We do so in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world calls Christ Yahweh Shai. Brother Chief Priest Alazar Ben Loy, aka the Gorilla Hebrew.
Deacon Akai.
And tonight we got another debate. We got a debate with our beloved brother, Orion Campbell, or G Consciousness, member of the Sheild Squad, a brother that many people may have came to know of late after the rise of the apologists and Israelite, quote unquote conflict or dialogue. But this is a brother that's been around for a long time, a brother who we've known for a considerable amount of time. And people may see us arguing, going back and forth, debating and discussing. But again, this is a guy that we've known for a long time and has been a friend of ours and, partner, you know what I mean? We definitely going back and forth privately and publicly, dealing with, differences in, in the doctrines and understanding of the scriptures. You know what I'm saying? So I always want to make sure we make this disclaimer before we engage in these debates. This ain't a professional wrestling or, you know what I'm saying, anything like that. Sometimes people read a little bit too much into what goes on in social media. So this is a brother we definitely been cool with for a long time, a brother that we respect, a brother that's not a slouch, a brother that definitely during a period in time where between the Israelite community and the quote unquote Kemetic conscious community, a brother that definitely was on the front lines dealing with the authenticity and the divinity of the Bible and etc. And was definitely a formidable warrior and was given, literally by himself, I've seen him give some of the top guys on that side of the business, you know what I'm saying, about that Bible. So again, this brother's not a slouch, so we want to continue in the spirit of brotherly love, though we may have some differences, and we just want to kind of discuss the differences tonight in specifics. Babylon, all right, Babylon, mystery Babylon, prophetically, what is the location, what does it represent? We know there's a lot of different doctrines and understandings floating around in regards to this. You have some brothers who are of the school of thought that it's America. You have some brothers that's of the school of thought that it's the Roman Catholic Church. You have some brothers of the school of thought that it's some type of Arabic Empire or, something to that effect. So we want to get to the bottom of what the brother Orion Campbell G Consciousness believes and why he believes it. Because, of course, he's not a brother who's just going to believe something for no reason. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to reason about it. And, we're going to see what conclusions we can come to. And, hopefully the viewing audience will be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. With that, with no further ado, I'm going to allow the brother to introduce himself and say whatever introductory statements he wants to make. And then we'll get into this. But go ahead, Laurent.
What's going on? Peace, brothers. I appreciate you brothers having me on, man. All praise to the Most High God. Can y'all hear me? I'm clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, loud clear. Yeah, definitely, man. Like I say, man, I appreciate you brothers, man, putting me on here, as well as the Deacon Akai, also the brother Gorilla Hebrew, you know what I'm saying? Appreciate the introduction, man. Like I say, man, we got differences in some things, but at the same time, that's why we having a discussion tonight, you know what I'm saying? So we can bring out and see what is it you guys deal with concerning Babylon and mystery Babylon. And we know that there's some things that's subjective there when it comes to interpretation, but just to see overall what is, going on tonight, with this text concerning mystery Babylon. What do you guys believe? What do I believe? What is the text saying? And sit down and really analyze that thing, you know what I'm saying? And so I definitely appreciate you brothers for having me on. Shout out to the Sheild Squad. As he said, I'm a Sheild Squad. I go by G Consciousness. You can see it on the screen. And shout out to the brothers and sisters over there, as well as SOG just as well, just as well too. So with that being said, let's make it happen, man.
Beautiful. All right. We got a little bit of echo. Oh, that's why you mean. Okay, cool. All right. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we'll get right into it.
This is yours.
I got a.
This is yours.
No, that ain't mine. The first question would be, I know what you told me, but just for the people that's watching, what is Babylon according to your understanding?
All right, so when we look at Babylon, right, what I see is in the text is the first mention of Babylon, which is actually Shinar, which we see in Genesis chapter 10. And so we look at that kingdom dealing with Nimrod. And so then in the other scriptures we see Babylon as it relates to the Chaldeans. And then when we get to mystery Babylon, when we get to Revelation 17, then we kind of see that it's really pushing off to a system or a religious system that has a state or a headquarters. So I look at mystery Babylon as really as being a religious system that has these mystery rites or ceremonies that trace back all the way to Babel Shinar. And during that dispersion is where we see a lot of those guys kind of go into captivity, you know what I'm saying? I mean, not go into captivity, but disperse, and they have that same mentality. So that's what I take as religious Babylon, basically.
Okay, so when the Bible says, for example, in Revelation 14:8, when it says, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. So because she made all the nations drink of the wine of her wrath, her fornication. So when we read the text and it says that Babylon is a great city and that great city is fallen, that to be a religion when it's saying that it's a city.
Right. And one of the things what we see is when you look at 17, right, you see that what she's called and what she does, like she makes them to commit fornication, all the kings. Let's go there. Matter of fact, I'll jump there real quick. Let's see, 17. So it says, I will show unto thee the judgment. This is 17 and 1. It says, and there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven veils, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. So she's called a great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And so when you look at it, it says, he carried me into the wilderness. So when you look at it, this woman, she's basically a religious system that has a headquarters. And so we kind of see that when we look at Zechariah chapter 5, but just for time's sake, when you look at it, there's spiritual fornication there, because she's a religious system that's heading over the beast system. Remember, she's sitting on the beast. She's not the beast. So if she's sitting on the beast, that means she's over them, and they're off the substance that's in this cup that she has them drunk off this spiritual type of fornications and stuff like that. And we kind of look at those things when we see Christmas, when we see Easter, when we see all of those things. These things actually predate the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire actually adopted those things in around 80 BC, around that time. So I don't know if you guys want to respond or ask another question, but you could definitely do so.
Yeah. You want to ask?
No, go ahead.
Well, I want to know if any of the members in the Sheild Squad celebrate any of those
that's a side
Babylonian mystery Babylonian religious systematic holidays that you mentioned.
And you know what? I'm pretty sure that they probably do, because I know we've had it to where, you know, a brother, you know, he celebrates Christmas and stuff like that. But you know, I know that there's a lot of things that go on in the church, you know what I'm saying, that we've been taught that is definitely wrong. And so I'll be the first to tell you that the majority of the people in the church are not following what this book say. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have a problem with that. So, you know.
Okay, because you don't go to church, right, Lauren?
Yeah, when I'm in town, I do go, you know what I'm saying? But when I'm out of town, like you know.
Of course. Damn, I just wanted to ask you something. Just for quick clarification, I know you're not saying that Babylon is the Catholic Church, but what you're saying is something like the Catholic Church, to where the Catholic Church has Vatican City, where they are, you know, where they kind of run the operations, but there's Catholic churches all over the world, and there's people subjected to Catholic ideology all over the world, right?
Right. And the thing about it is they adopted that. Like the Babylon, the mystery Babylon system, if you look at it, when you look at the Pope, they have the Babylon caps on. They have also
exactly
things just as well. So they adopted that. The first order of that is what we can see is out of Sumer came forth Egypt, which was one of them empires that we see that's listed in Revelation 17. So they adopted that. It's not that they are that this mystery rite system or ceremonies that they have came from that first one, which is Sumer, out of Genesis chapter 10.
Okay, I'm with you. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, when Mystery Babylon is in reference to a great city or a habitation, that would be, according to your understanding, the religious system placed on a specific location or ruling empire?
Yes, in my location, I have where the first rebellion started is where the last rebellion is going to end, which is in Shinar, according to Zechariah chapter 5, and we can go there in a minute. And also, we look at Isaiah chapter 66, saying that the people will go and look on this place, that when this city is destroyed, all for eternity, to look at and see these people that was basically, you know what I'm saying, rebellious and what went on in that city, according to Revelation chapter 18, because the city was destroyed. Now, if you take that position that is wrong, then you know you will have to prove actually that this is what took place, or I mean that Rome was also mentioned around 300 plus times in connection with Babylon in the Bible. Now, if you take the position that it's Jerusalem, then you pose another problem, because Jerusalem is a spot to where we see that some cities will be destroyed, but for the most part, the Lord comes back in Zechariah 14 and save Jerusalem before it's really, you know, destroyed. So that's the position.
You can't say Jerusalem is going to be all the way destroyed. That's just contrary to way too many prophecies.
Right. So I take that position as
there is a rise in the school of thought. I've been seeing a rise in the school of thought of people saying Jerusalem is Babylon. I've been seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you have some of the you might have some of the full preterists. They take that view. And so when they take that view, then they'll say, well, this happened in 70 AD. And so when you look at the parallels, you kind of see it, because they'll push to Revelation chapter 12, and they'll say that woman is the same woman that lines up with Revelation 17. Right.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay. All right. I'm with you.
From a logical point of view, they'll say, well, this is that woman. And so when you look at the parallels, you'd be like, man, it's almost hand in hand. But when you actually read it, you realize that God is not going to destroy Jerusalem. I'm saying he's going to gather people against it, Zechariah 14, but he's not going to destroy Jerusalem, because that's why it says that, you know, he's going to come back before Jerusalem is destroyed.
That's the Mount Olive.
Yeah,
Mount Olive. Okay, I'm with you. I'm familiar.
Okay. Okay. What is the great city? What is the great city that the Bible is talking about that's going to be destroyed, that is fallen, that it's in referencing Babylon to?
I take it that it is the regular Babylon that we see that was at Genesis chapter 10. The reason why I take that is because when we look at Revelation 16, let's look at what it says. It says, this is verse 17, Revelation 16 and 17. It says, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, it is done. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great. Verse 19. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. Watch what it says. And great Babylon came into remembrance before God, to give her unto her the cup of her wine, or fierce of his wrath. So when you kind of look at it, and you deal with this text right here, it points us back to Jeremiah chapter 50, and also Jeremiah 51, and also Isaiah 11. And so just to kind of get an idea of what I'm saying, when you look at Jeremiah, Isaiah 13, 19, and 22, it says, and Babylon, and remember, when you're dealing with Isaiah, you're dealing with Ezekiel and these different books, these books are what we call partial fulfillments, and also a prophecy that we see. So some of them was fulfilled partially during the judgment of Babylon, but the doom of Babylon has not taken place yet, to where it will not be inhabited for generations. It says, verse 19, Isaiah 13 and 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans, excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Babylon was not overthrown as like Sodom and Gomorrah when we look at when the Persian and Medes came in and took it over. It should be it should never be inhabited. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was definitely agreeing with you, making sure people understand that we definitely agree on that aspect of that ancient Babylon did not get devastated and, like you said, the doom like it's saying in that prophecy. So we definitely agree with those contemporary prophets at that time in Babylon were dealing with partial fulfillments that dealt with the Babylon of their time and also what they, latter day or apocalyptic connotation.
Right. And so we see it says it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generations, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. And so we see that what took place during the time of historical extra biblical sources, we can see that when the Medes and Persians came in, what historical content say for us how they let down the Euphrates and then snuck into the city and really overtook it. And then Cyrus himself set up his kingdom there. And then years later, when when Alexander the Great came in, he pushed towards the east and waxed strong towards the east. And he set up his kingdom there just as well. If you look at what Alexander the Great did, he made Babylon his capital before he died, actually.
And we also see in the New Testament the church in Babylon. There's a church.
Definitely. Yep, definitely.
So just to clarify, you went in pretty deep right there, but I just want to simplify it. The great city that is in reference to Babylon is actually ancient Babylon?
Ancient Babylon.
Geographically,
yes.
Okay. So where's ancient Babylon at today? What is modern day Babylon today?
Well, I would say in the geographically in the location of where we might see Iraq at, or what we see in the scripture, to when you look at and just to grab a text real quick, that's in that vicinity or that location. But when you look at Genesis 10, it tells you the kingdoms that came up out of that. It says in the beginning of his kingdom, this is Genesis 10 and 10. And Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Eric. And that Eric right there is mostly sometimes translated as Uruk. So the Uruk culture, or the Uruk priesthood, comes from out of here too. So and then from that it stems Iraq. And then Akkad, which is the Akkadians, and Kalnai, I'm not sure what that is, in the land of Shinar, basically. So in the land of Shinar is the very land that we see this Uruk, and which is Iraq. And so I believe that this is the area possibly in that vicinity was where we see Babel, or the land of confused. I mean, where God, which means to be confused, or that area.
Okay. I'm gonna fast forward real quick, but it still has something to do with this particular topic that we're talking about. The 10 horns in Revelation 17. Who are these 10 horns? If you could answer that.
Now the 10 horns, right?
You don't have to name them individually,
right.
But I know you. I watched a little bit of your videos, so I know you think, if I'm correct, you believe that that's the revised Roman Empire, right?
Right. So how I look at it is this: is the 10 horns are on what we call the seventh head, or the seventh kingdom. Excuse me. So on that seventh head, it comes out of that kingdom 10 divisions with 10 kings within that old Roman Empire, which we call revised because it's under 10 kings. Now, I'm not sure who the 10 kings is. Now, remember, the 10 kings in the Old Testament in Daniel chapter 7 is mentioned as horns. But when we look at Daniel chapter 2, it's mentioned as toes. And so I'm not sure who it is, but I know that in Revelation 17, it says that out. I mean, it says that the little horn, which will be the, I mean, or the Antichrist will be, or the beast, he will be over basically those 10 kings. They will have power. He would give them power. I mean, they will reign with him 1 hour. He would give them power to reign with him 1 hour. It says in the text. So I can't name them per se of which division or which king, because that hasn't been revealed to us. But I can say this: that in Daniel chapter 7, it says that the 10 kings rise up first out of the Roman Empire, or the fourth beast. And when the 10 kings rise up after the 11 horn rise up after them, and he plucks up 3 of the 10, and it looks like the rest give their power unto him. That's what it looks like. So that's what I get from that. I'm not sure who the 10 kings was or who it would be, but I do know that those kings will form before the Antichrist come, because he comes in out from those 10.
Okay, I watched a video of yours. It says Revelation 17 chapter. It's about 11 months ago, and at about 1 hour and 58 minutes, you say that the 7th beast is the European Union. Do you still hold to that ideology?
Now, I hold to it's either the European Union or the UN. That's what I hold to, because the European Union is their side, but then the UN consists of the United Nations. So whichever one of those two begins to override whoever, which I think the UN will kind of override the European Union, I think that it's one of them. Because if you look at the European Union, and if you Google it, or you can look at the news, CNN, they're actually putting money forth to buy Babylon right now. Or actually, Obama had actually put forth money to invest in the rebuilding of Babylon. So you can kind of look at the UN actually doing it. It was actually on CNN of them talking about that too. So you can Google that if you want to check that out. So I think it
okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, okay, that because yeah, I heard you talking about a continental war called World War III. But how would the UN be an offspring or offshoot or spring forth out of the ancient Roman Empire? It would be more accurate to say that the EU is the revised Roman Empire.
Right, because one of the things that we see is that it's about the divisions. See, it's the areas, because remember, when you start looking at these angelic beings, or when you start looking at Babel itself, this is a gateway. This is a place where, like the pyramids is, it's put there for a reason. This is where they channel at. This is where they receive these and these deities, give them information to manifest into the material world. So when you look at these very areas, these spots that we see, is about locations. Why did the Romans push all the way east? Because they want to control geographical areas. And also these very areas, we see that these angelic demonic beings are over these areas, which give these forces the actually I want to say the knowledge to even, go forth like they're doing today. So that's why I believe to where when I say that in these geographical areas, we see this is divisions of the old Roman Empire. And then we look at how the old Roman Empire spread. It just wasn't in Europe. It was also at that time within other places, just like the Assyrian Empire, you know what I'm saying, the Egyptian Empire up and down the Nile, and then other empires just as well, as far as Babylon too. We know he ruled almost all the way to Libya almost. And all the way, he took over the Assyrians too, just as well. So that's why I say that it's either that it's really based on geographical locations and these gateways, basically, of these demonic forces.
Okay. So you believe that Babylon, ancient Iraq, is going to come back into power as a world domination?
Definitely, yeah. I think that and reason why, as we just read in 16, it says the remembrance of Babylon. In Revelation 16, it says the remembrance of Babylon came to his remembrance to give unto her due his wrath. Right? When you read Daniel, what is it? When you read Jeremiah 50 and 51, it tells you that. But also, let's look at Zechariah. Jump to Zechariah chapter 5. And let's look at what takes place here. Where we at? Put this down right here. Yeah, so right here, when you look at Zechariah 5, it says, and the woman sitting in the bushel, where is this? Okay, Zechariah 5, and I want to say 5. Zechariah 5 and 5. Now, the scene that we get here is basically Mystery Babylon, or this system, being taken back to the land of Shinar. And this is how I come to the conclusion that Mystery Babylon is a religious system. It says, then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, lift up now thine eyes and see what is that go forth. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah that go forth. Anybody know what an ephah is? It is a jar, basically, a measuring jar. He said, moreover, this is the resemblance through all the earth. It says, and behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. So on this measuring jar, there was lifted up a talent of lead, or the lid off this measuring jar. Now watch what's in the midst of this measuring jar. And remember, he said this is the resemblance of all, or throughout all the earth. He says, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah jar. So she's trying to lift up out of the lid of the jar, right? And watch what he says, verse 8. And he said, this is wickedness. So in this jar, or in this measurement jar, is a wickedness that's in the midst that tries to lift the lid above the top of the jar. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah. So he cast it right back in the midst of the jar. And he cast the weight of the lid upon the mouth thereof. So he cast the weight of the lid upon the mouth of the jar. Now watch what he does with this jar. Let's go to verse 9. It says, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, basically just meaning swiftness. But they had wings like the wings of a stork. There's some wordplay there because a stork is unclean in Israel. So I don't know why would that be there. So these are, it's kind of weird. It says, and they lifted up the ephah, or they lifted up the jar between the earth and heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, whether do thy bear the ephah? So he said, where are you taking this ephah, this jar, with this wickedness, or this woman in the midst of it? He said unto me, to build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. So that very wickedness, or that woman, Mystery Babylon, as we see, is taken to Shinar. And when we look at Revelation 17, we see that John is carried away into the wilderness, and he sees the woman, which is this very wickedness is in the land of Shinar, or the land of Babylon today.
I remember when we have differences on Zechariah 5, but I remember when you first brought that out to us, and it was very, very, very interesting. So that's a big part of why you believe Mystery Babylon is a religious system.
Yes.
Now, I just wanted to get your worldview on why would the EU or NATO, which not NATO, I'm sorry, the EU or UN, which you say could possibly be the 10 horns, why would they want to destroy?
Well, when you look at it, when you look at the 10 kings and you look at Revelation 17, right, it says they hate the whore, right? So what this is talking about is setting up, separating religion from the state or from the government. That's what this is talking about. So they hate the whore, and they hate the literal state or headquarters of that place, because they want to establish what we see in Matthew 24 and 15, to where they come into Jerusalem. When it says the abomination of desolations that's mentioned in 2 Thessalonians 2 and 4, when it says that the Antichrist will come in, or the son of perdition will come in and sit in the kingdom of the temple of God and say that he is God, because I believe that there will be a third temple. So when we look at it, what it's saying is this is that they hate the whore, and they're going to burn her with fire, right? And so this religious area that we see that's going to be in this area. They're going to destroy that religion and because she's the queen of heaven. That's what it really is. When you look at, she's actually the queen of heaven. So what he does is he establishes a religion that's based on a false image, which is a false prophet, and which is a false image also in a false prophet, as well as the Antichrist himself, because that's his trinity right there. So he takes the woman up out of the situation in the headquarters, and he moves his headquarters into what we see, which is Jerusalem today. That's where he's going to establish his system there, basically. And it's not going to be based off of this type of queen of heaven type of religion, but based off of, as we see, like this, it's going to be a lot of homosexuality this in Israel, because if you look at Revelations 11, it says that it's going to be called spiritual Egypt and also spiritual Sodom. That means that the whoredoms and the perversions as Egypt with their whoredoms and their perversions, and then also Sodom as homosexuality, which is the outer court, is going to be given over to the Gentiles to be trodden underfoot 42 or 3.5 years. So that's what I see with that.
Just
no.
Okay. All right, that's cool. So I wanted to ask also, because this is also dealing with Babylon as well. We're going to try to stay on track, which I believe we have so far. Who is the false prophet that is spoken of in Revelation?
I'm not sure who the false prophet is in Revelation. It doesn't really necessarily say, but I do know that the false prophet is almost compared to almost like an Elijah or something like that, but it is a world religious leader, basically giving all props to the Antichrist, and then also, you know, to
could it be the Pope, maybe?
Huh?
Could it be the Pope, maybe?
It possibly can be the Pope. I'm not sure, possibly, but I wouldn't think that it is the Pope, because whoever it is, he's going to be a man that is very looked at as influenced to cause Middle Eastern countries as well as other countries to actually come together. And I don't think the Pope has actually been successful at doing that when it comes to, you know, Islamic or Arabic cultures, and also Africans and stuff like that, you know, mainly. So I don't, you know, people have said that it was the Pope plenty of times, and all the popes and basically died, basically, who they said it was. So I think it's going to be somebody that's of possibly Arab ethnicity, you know what I'm saying, and basically, you know, controlling that way to influence mainly overall the people, probably.
Okay. Also in your video, you said that the eighth beast, we're gonna go into Daniel 7 and Daniel 2, but I don't want to jump the gun, but I do want to ask you this. You said that the eighth beast is going to be an Islamic state, and you said it's Syria. Again, you said this 11 months ago. You may have changed your doctrine by now, or you may still hold fast to that. Do you still agree that Syria is going to be the world empire that's going to take over everything and destroy the revised Roman Empire, and then try to fight against Christ, as they say?
Right. When you look at what is it, Daniel chapter 8, and when you look at Daniel chapter 8, it says that out of one of these four comes forth a little horn, and that little horn is kind of parallel up to Antiochus or Antiochus during that time, the Grecian Empire, and also a latter king, Daniel chapter 11. And so it's basically showing you what this king is going to do, causing the abomination of desolation, which is what the Antiochus did, or Antiochus. And then also later on, what Christ is talking about in Matthew 24 and 15, when he said the abomination of desolation will take place when Israel run into the wilderness, a portion of Israel run into the wilderness. So it's almost similar to where he's showing you, Daniel, that these two have something in common. One is right here that's going to happen in the near future, and then one is going to happen farther later on in the future. And these two are, this latter king is more wicked than Antiochus. And so when we look at it, it says that he comes out of, it says there are 4. He said that he comes out of 1 and he plucks up 3. That's in Daniel chapter 7, when it talks about that he comes out of, there's 10 kings, right? He's the little horn. Once he come up as the 11, he plucks up 3 of those 10, right? So when he plucks up 3 of those 10, they subdue and give their power unto him, right? And it says that we know that in Revelation 17 that 8th kingdom causes the 7th kingdom to continue for a short space of time. Why? Because Daniel chapter 7 just told you, once the 8th king or the little horn comes, he plucks up 3 of those 10, and the rest give their power unto him, which causes that 7th kingdom to continue a little short space of time, and he establishes the 8th kingdom before we get to the 9th, which is Christ's kingdom. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys know what all of those kingdoms is, because I got a couple of questions myself too, just as well.
Yeah, sure. When we get to Daniel 7 and Daniel 2, we can do that. Do you know what because we don't believe in the Antichrist. We believe that there's many Antichrists. We believe that a so-called non-messianic Israelite is an Antichrist. So, but according to your understanding, you believe that there's one Antichrist that's going to have an empire. Do you know, does the Bible say how he's going to meet his demise, or how he's going to die?
Right. In Revelations 19, I believe it tells you that. Let's look at it. Let's look at what it says. Revelations 19. Where is that? Okay, Revelations 19 and 20. Because remember, the beast consists of 3 things. When you look at Revelations chapter 17, the beast consists of a spirit, according to Revelation chapter 11, when it says a spirit that comes out of the bottomless pit to go into perdition. That's the beast, right? And then we look at the second thing it consists of is a man who we call the Antichrist. And then the third thing is the beast is a system, because we see that she's riding on the beast, and we see that it's dealing with a political system and an economic system where she is the religious system that's over that system, causing them to buy, sell, or trade in order to believe in this very system. Now look what it says. This is verse 20. It says, and the beast taken, it says in verse 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth, right? So you got the beast and the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, and against his army, which is Christ. And it says, and the beast was taken, see, he's taken, and with him the false prophet. So there is a false prophet, and there is a beast, which is a dictator who we call the Antichrist, with the spirit that's backing him that comes from the bottomless pit, which is in Revelation chapter 11. And also Daniel chapter 11 also tells you about this king that is called the beast as well. Now look what it says. It says, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. It says, watch what it says. It says, I don't know why it's saying. It says, both them were taken. It says, and both them were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. So we see that the beast himself was taken, and also the false prophet was taken and thrown into the lake of fire. When you read also Revelation chapter 13, it tells you concerning the beast, his image. Then I got one more scripture I want to grab too before y'all do that, because I definitely got to grab 2 Thessalonians and 2 and 4. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. I'm gonna start right there. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come and falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. See, it says the son of perdition, whoso opposeth it or exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. When does this happen? This happened in the midst of the week, according to Daniel chapter 9 and 27, when he calls the oblations to cease and the sacrifices to cease, the morning and the evening sacrifices, and he goes into the temple and he basically breaks that covenant with them, and he sets up his he calls it the abomination of desolations according to Matthew 24:15, spoken of by Daniel when Christ was speaking about that. This is what this is talking about here, relating to that temple in Revelation chapter 11, verse 1.
Okay, cool. I just want to point out a couple of things that you said, and if you could stay in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it says, verse 7, it says, for the mystery of iniquity, who this person is, or who this people is, as we believe, does already work. What does it mean that the mystery of the iniquity does already work?
Okay, when we look at the mystery of iniquity, what's going on is that we see that that Antichrist spirit is really at work already before the actual Antichrist come. In other words, we see that people are really against Christ. You know what I'm saying? And they have this anti-Christ mindset. And so when we look at it, it's at work right now. It's already at work. But when the Antichrist come, that is the one that we see that actually causes what we see in Revelation chapter 6, who is the horse rider that brings war, famine, and death and hell, and that destruction that we see this in Revelation chapter 6. So it's interesting that you brought out this text, because I want to ask you, what withholdeth that God it comes that we see in verse chapter 4? If you believe, you know, what withholdeth that spirit or that Antichrist or that perdition? Because we look at it, that perdition that we see, it's also in Revelation chapter 17 and also Revelation chapter 11 when it says the son of perdition.
What was your question?
What withholdeth? Because it says who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple. Now remember, when you look at the grammar syntax of this, this is using personal pronouns and stuff like that. So we know that this is basically talking about an individual. And so it says, and now ye know that what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. So what is withholding that this person that's going to sit in this temple might be revealed at his time?
You mean what's stopping him from being able to sit in the temple at the time?
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Okay. I want to make sure. Read the scripture that he's talking about.
2 Thessalonians 2 and 4. It says, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
Where's the withholding at? What part is that, Laurent?
Right there in
verse 5. Okay, go ahead. Keep reading.
It says, remember ye not that when I was, verse 6, and now ye know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time.
Now we know what withholdeth.
Yeah.
Read verse 5.
It's verse 5. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and ye know that he might be revealed in his time.
So when he was with them, he told us these things, so you may know what withholdeth. So I don't see what is withholding being elaborate. That 2 Thessalonians is what?
5.
Let me take a look real quick so I can give a concise answer. 1 second.
2 and 6, my bad.
But he was on something to find. Worship. All right. You said that was verse 6?
Verse 6.
Hold on. Don't you remember that I told you about this? And now you may know what withholdeth, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let. So that's the key. The key is verse 7. Secret until the one who is holding back steps out of the way. That's a good question. The one who was holding it back steps out of the way. Even him who's coming is after the working of Satan, and all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness and them that perish, because they have received not the love of truth, that they might be saved. So the strong delusion that they shall believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not. But we allow. That's a good question. I'm not sure I can give you a sufficient answer at this time about that.
Right, and so
I never really looked at what withholding. I never really looked at that, to be honest with you.
Right, and so when we look at this text right here, most people will say, well, maybe it's the Holy Spirit. Most people will say, well, it's the church. And other people will say it's Michael. You know what I'm saying? These are the arguments that they say. It's Michael. That, you know, most preterists will say that it's Michael. And so Michael, the archangel. And so what I see here is that there's an individual, the iniquity is already at work, but there's an individual that is coming. And that is that 11 horn that we see that come out of that 10 that plucks up those 3. That 11 horn that we see is mentioned in Revelation chapter 6. I'm not sure if you understand about the white horse rider that come out in Revelation chapter 6 when the first seal is broken up off the book. Because there's 7 seals, the first seal is broken up off the book to reveal the contents of that book. That Revelation 7, something has to be taken up out of the way. I'm sorry, Revelation 6. Something has to be taken up out of the way in order for this person to be revealed. Revelation 6 actually reveals that to us, what's taken up out of the way, as well as when we look at Revelations, the book of Revelations. So I think that that's real key right there, because it's telling us that this very spirit that we see that's lining up, that has these power and these signs, is what we see in Revelation 13 and also 19 when we look at the beast and also the false prophet.
Okay, my last question on this before we get into the 7 heads and the 10 horns and Daniel 2 and 7 is to clarify. You know, you mentioned how the Antichrist would die, and you said he was going to get taken and thrown into the lake of fire, correct?
Yes.
So in Daniel 8, if this is the Antichrist, the Bible is describing his death and his end another way, and not as in what most Christians would say, how the Antichrist will perish in Revelation. When you read Daniel 8, verse 25, it says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, by himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, and he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Meaning he's not going to die from anybody injuring him or taking him and throwing him into a fire or anything like that. He was going to die without hands being put on him. So how would you interpret that in contrast with what you brought out in Revelation?
Right. Now, remember I told you that when we look at Daniel chapter 8, and you start at the beginning, we see that the horn is broken, which is Alexander, and 4 of the visions rise up out of his kingdom. Now, when we look at it, Daniel begins to talk about parallels between Antiochus and also the latter king. So when you look at this king right here, and you kind of read in Daniel chapter 10 and 11, it's actually talking about Antiochus, because this happened to him too. Now, it kind of parallels when you start getting off into Daniel chapter 11 and I want to say 37, to where it starts talking about the latter king, right? And so when you're looking at this king right here, this king is actually talking about Antiochus or Antiochus Epiphanes and how his death was. Because when you actually look at it historically, and when you look at it also in Daniel chapter 10 and 11, you see that this is the very way that this king comes in with flattery and craftiness and then also him being broken without hand, or what happened to him, how he ended up dying or whatever case may. So this is what this is talking about. So when you look at Daniel, it's telling you about a near fulfillment prophecy that's going to happen, and then a latter fulfillment. We don't start reading about that other Messiah or false Messiah until we get to Daniel chapter 9, and also chapter 9 and 26 to 27.
Yeah, I brought that out because you said in Daniel 8 and 23, when it says in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a king of fierce countenance and understanding of dark sentences shall stand up. So you said that's not talking about Antiochus, that's talking about a latter time Antichrist. And so it stays in this same context all the way to 25 and tells you how this fierce king of fierce countenance is going to die, and it says it's going to be broken without hand. So what does the context change again?
Yeah, and go back to Antiochus.
Right.
Right. Well, actually, when you look at this, right, and it says the latter time, so it says, and his power shall be mighty, but not of his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and he shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people, right? So we see, and then that's a problem with that too, just as well. If you take hold to certain positions that you hold to. Okay, when you look at this is a parallel of this king. So when you look into the latter times, or when it says, it may say the latter times in this, is really talking about the latter times of that kingdom that we see the Antiochus is going to come in before we see the Romans come in 30, I want to say 30 BC they come in, and they basically draw a circle around Antiochus and tell him, bruh, you're gonna have to give up, or when you come out of this circle, you better have your mind right. And so he comes out of that. I mean, when he comes out of that circle, whatever, he goes back into his land or whatever, and then he perishes off in his land. Matter of fact, I would like to get that, because I don't want to be, so you can see that what this is just really a prophecy of Antiochus himself and what he does, or Antiochus himself. All right, let's see, 10. All right, so let's look at 11, because Michael is seeing the vision right here. So he says, let's see. All right, let's look at verse 30. Let's start at verse 25. No, 23. It says, and this is talking about the king of the north right here, and going against basically the king of the south. It says, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, but he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province. He shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil, and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds. And it says, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And it says, with a great army. And it says, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both these kings shall do mischiefs. Hold on, I don't know why this thing is doing like that. Hold on for a minute. And some of them it says to do mischief, right? And now when he shall fall, they shall be hopeless with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries, and some of them understanding shall fall. So basically, this is talking about Antiochus on what he's going to basically do, and how he's going to come in peaceably, just as well as we see when we start looking at Daniel chapter 8 as well. So remember, I said that he's kind of parallel to this king. Most theologians say that he's parallel to the king of Antiochus Epiphanes, as far as his latter-day king. because he does, one of them commits abomination of desolations, and the other one commits abomination of desolations too, spoken of Daniel in 9 and 27.
Okay. Real quick, let's deal with something real quick. It's just too good to let go. So I'm gonna start at Daniel 8 and 18, and it says,
so we can deal with it in context. I mean, the context probably started about 15, but the first few verses are just the angel getting orders to go and tell Daniel everything, right? Plainly. Go ahead.
Okay, verse 18. It says, now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground.
Read.
But he touched me and set me upright.
Read.
And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be.
So it's number one, let's point out here. He said, I will make thee known what shall be in the last end of the indignation. So it's talking about a specific indignation. It's not necessarily talking about the end of days, but he's saying the last end of this particular indignation. Go ahead.
Verse 20, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia.
Plain and simple, right? Go ahead.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Read.
Which
of course is Alexander. Go ahead.
Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power.
So we know that that's history already, right? Read.
And in the latter time of their kingdom,
again, specific particular.
Right. Their king.
Right. Go ahead.
When the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up.
Antiochus, correct? Go ahead.
Well, he says
he says that's the Antichrist.
Right.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
No, I said that that's Antiochus. Yeah, I just read.
You said that's Antiochus.
Yeah, that's why I went to
so
Daniel chapter 11 to show you that that's Antiochus.
Okay, so where is the Antichrist in the 8th?
In chapter 8.
In chapter 8.
The Antichrist ain't in chapter 8. The Antichrist is actually in chapter. He's parallel. Right, chapter 9.
You thought you were saying that he was in. We thought that you said he was in verse 23, but then it gets back on the Antiochus. That was the confusion.
Yeah.
All right,
see,
that's fine.
That's why I said this is talking about. Yeah, it's talking about. It's a parallel between Antiochus and also the latter king. When you read Revelation, when we read Daniel chapter 9 and 27, that's when you start getting off into that other text that we see. This is this anointed or false Messiah or whatever the case may be. Daniel 9 and 27. So that's what that's talking about. This one right here.
Okay, so that's why there's parallel between Antiochus and the Antichrist.
Right. But, that's why I went to.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Right. And that's why I went to
back
Daniel chapter 11. That's why I went to Daniel chapter 11 to show you that this was Antiochus, because you see he came in peaceably just as well too. Here in this.
Okay, cool. All right, so back in Revelation 17, so we could conclude this chapter and then get into Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. I wanted to read Revelation 17 and I wanted to ask you, did the Most High show John the Revelator all the world empires in Revelation 17? And what I mean by empires mean an empire that has domination over the known world.
Well, actually, he showed them 7 empires, right? Well, actually 8 empires. Now, when you look at Revelation 17, remember he said there are 7 mountains, right? He said, and the 7 mountains are 7 kings. He said 5 have fallen. So in John's day, John, he telling John 5 are fallen. So the key is to identify those 5 that have failed, and then to identify the 7th and the 8th. Well, we know about the 7th and the 8th. Let's identify the one that was in John's day and also the 5 that fell before his time. That is the Assyrian Empire that came up out of the Sumer Empire, so to speak, or the empire we see this in Sumer that came from the Tower of Babel. Shortly after that, we see the Egyptian Empire, right? And so we see the Egyptian empire, we see also the Assyrian empire, we see also the Babylon empire, the Medes and Persian, and also the Grecian empire. Now in John's day, it's the Roman empire. So he tells John, he says, John, there are 7 kings, right? And he says 5 have fallen. So when you look at those mountains and kings, that means empires. The 5 that fell I just named, all of these got in common something. They all have in common one thing with each other. They all oppressed Israel. Egypt oppressed Israel. Babylon, Assyria oppressed Israel. Babylon oppressed Israel. Medes and Persians just as well. Israel was up under them till he freed them, right? And then also we have the Grecian Empire, you know, and then we have the Roman Empire, and then the 7th, I believe, is revised Rome up under 10 kings or 10 divisions, and then we have also the 8th kingdom, which comes and causes the 7th kingdom to continue a short space of time by plucking up 3, and the rest giving their power unto him to establish the 8th kingdom until Christ's kingdom come. So that's what I mean by that. Is it's not naming specifically, it's not saying specifically that these kingdoms are kingdoms that we see are known kingdoms today or whatever, but these are, you know, empires basically.
Okay. Is there any kingdom that John wasn't shown the empire and transgress us and oppress us?
I think John was shown everything that's concerning the political, economic, and religious systems of today that's all ran the same way, as far as America, okay, all of those people.
Okay. So again, going back to how you say that the great city that's also called Babylon is actually Iraq today. I want to read Revelation 17 and 16. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire, in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled." Verse 18, key. "And the woman which thou sawest is the great city," right? You said this was Iraq, "which reigneth over all the kings of the earth." So why is Daniel saying that after this 7th empire is going to be the 8th empire, which you say is Syria or an Islamic state, but it's also saying that what you call Iraq today is going to be a world power and empire and domination?
Well, when you look at it, right? Okay, now if you can rephrase that again, matter of fact, because I want to make sure that.
Okay, Daniel is saying, I'm sorry, John is saying that it's going to go from the 6th empire to the 7th empire, which you say is the revised Roman Empire, which you say is the Antichrist and an Islamic state, which you said Syria. I'll hold you to that.
No, so, you said,
but it's also
the 7th kingdom is the kingdom that the Antichrist comes and takes over to establish the 8th kingdom. So the 7th kingdom is under 10 kings. The Antichrist comes and plucks up 3 of those 10 kings according to Daniel chapter 7, remember?
Yeah. So the 7th empire, which you said is the revised Roman Empire, then it goes into the 8th beast. If, according to your understanding and logic, that the Babylon, the great city, is actually Iraq, then it said that this great city will reign over all the kings of the earth. At what point does this happen in between the 6th and the 7th? It couldn't be, because it's in time connotation. Or is it in between the 7th and the 8th? Because it seems as if John is saying that these empires are coming in one after another in concession. So when would there be time for Iraq to become a sole world power today?
Right, and so
according to Revelation 17:18.
Right, when we look at the king of the north, right? That comes from Assyria. Matter of fact, when you look at Micah, and you look at certain things Saddam Hussein did, and you know, what he did was he wanted to rebuild Iraq, as well as when we look at I talked about the UN earlier. to where the UN wants to rebuild Iraq. I talked about Obama. You can actually look at it and Google it. Obama actually gave funds unto Iraq to actually build it up. So what I'm saying is that this is an empire, or what he will establish will be to actually push towards the east and make that his capital, his headquarters for Iraq itself. So Iraq will become Babylon will become a commercial center in the last days, for us when it comes to trade, oil, all of those type of things. They will do all of those things. That's why when you look at it, there's three things that's mentioned when you talk about the merchants of the sea, you talk about the kings, and then also there's another thing that's mentioned. Oh, the people. The people are going to weep over this area, because this area is going to become a commercial center or a commerce center to where it's going to be big on trade in the latter days. This is why China is putting money into also the rebuilding of Iraq this as well too. And so we know already that in 16, it says that Babylon came into his remembrance to destroy it. And we go back to Jeremiah 50 and 51, and also Isaiah 13, which you guys already established, that Babylon remains to be destroyed. So if it remains to be destroyed, that Babylon that came into remembrance had to be Revelation chapter 18 Babylon, as well as the religious system that is there that will be disconnected from the state, because the state disconnecting that religious system to establish a system of its own, which is a system not of the Queen of Heaven, but of these the man, the dictator, also the false prophet, and also the image that will come alive at that time, that he will make to come alive at that time as well. So that's what I mean by when I say.
Okay.
That. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Are we in the? Is the seventh empire arose yet in power yet?
The seventh empire has not arose in power yet.
The seventh head is not what you say is the revised Roman Empire. You said it could be EU, it could be the UN. If it is the EU, which you taught on your class, then that means the seventh empire, the seventh beast, is in power.
Well, it can't be in power, because one thing you got to know about the EU right now, and just the UN. Okay, these are two things, right? The UN is the United Nations, but when you look at even the EU, these are divisions that has to be getting, like there's divisions of the old Roman Empire that's in Russia. And so they don't have those divisions. So to establish those divisions, there has to be a tricontinental war between Africa, Asia, and also Europe to get those back, to get those divisions back, to establish those 10 kings as kings within those divisions. So when we look at it, the EU doesn't have those divisions, but when we start looking at the United Nations, then we see that they have some of those divisions that's over there. So either way, I think it might be the EU, the UN that might take over basically overall of everything to establish the United Nations, which is the New World Order, and that system. So that's what I'm saying about the tricontinental war that we're going to see to establish that. And then later the little horn comes up after that, or the Antichrist comes up after that, and he makes war with 3 of those kings within that division of that revised Roman Empire. And then he himself becomes that 8th kingdom. And this is why the 7th kingdom continues for a short space of time, Revelation 17.
Let me make sure.
So back to Revelation 17:18, and the woman which thou saw is that great city which reigneth over all the kings of the earth. So if this is an empire, why doesn't John say that he's seeing 9 heads or 9 beasts as opposed to just 8? If Babylon's going to come back into power, or could you give me the order in which will it be Iraq coming to be a world power, then EU or NATO? I'm sorry, EU or the UN, then the 8th beast, or in which order will they come into power?
Right. So in John's day, he said, John, 5 kings have fallen. We named them Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medes and Persians, and the Grecians. They fell, right? He said one is. In John's day was the Roman Empire. He said one is to come. And when he come, he must continue for a short space of time, right? So that's the revised Rome. Reason why he continues a short space of time, because the 8th kingdom come, which is the Antichrist, who subdues 3 of those 10 kings. They submit and give their power unto him, according to Revelation 17. And then the 9th kingdom is Christ's kingdom when he comes back with the believers to establish his 9th kingdom, which is the eternal kingdom, which is that very mountain that we see this in Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 talks about a mountain that comes down and smoke those very kingdoms. Now remember, Daniel only seen the kingdoms that was in his day. He's seen the image that we see that was of Babylon. He sees the image of Medes and Persians and the Grecians and the Roman. Well, John sees these kingdoms that have dominated and ruled over Israel, starting all the way back from Egypt. So these are what all of these kingdoms, these major empires have in common with each other, is because they ruled over Egypt. Now there is a interpretation out there, which my brother Nasi Mitzvah hold to that interpretation, that the eighth kingdom is the seventh kingdom is the Ottoman Empire. I don't hold that to that interpretation, because we see that the Ottoman Empire did not rule over Israel. Israel was actually scattered in 70 AD. So they didn't rule over Israel. They didn't oppress Israel. Israel was scattered. And matter of fact, that is the time that where the Arabics and the Jews were more so, some of the Arabics and the Jews was more so, Islamics was more so building with each other, if anything. So he holds to that interpretation, but I hold to, the interpretation that I do, which is from a dispensationalist point of view.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that the relevance to why these kingdoms are being shown to these prophets is in direct relation to their oppression of Israel, correct?
Right, definitely.
Okay, all right, which that makes sense. So I guess the question is, I guess we're kind of having a timeline question, because you got, of the seven heads, we're awaiting the seventh head's rise right now, correct?
Right, and what happens is there's like 24 states right now. They have to be broken down into 10 divisions, 10, and there's some I think 24 to 25. There's some it has to be desized into 10 divisions in the Roman Empire. There's some areas that needs to be got in Africa, also in the East, and also in Europe.
One of them.
I'm sorry.
Carthage being a part of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, North Africa.
If we're rebuilding Rome, this is what we got. We got to get all the old Roman stuff back. Right. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
The East. All right. That makes sense. So basically, we're waiting the seven. So we're in the sixth head right now?
No, actually, when you look at the Roman Empire, when you look at Daniel chapter 2, the image, remember the legs begin to like break up. You know what I'm saying? Representing the East and the West. Yeah, right. So they begin to break up. So when they break up, the Roman Empire broke up because of the division within itself. The Roman Empire was never conquered by another empire. It broke up because of the beef that they had within themselves. So we're in the breaking up of that. So to form that back again, it's formed upon the 10 kings now, and that's how that happens with the seven head, basically, revised Rome. Most people say revived, but I say revised Rome because during that time they didn't have 10 kings or none of that like that. It was just an emperor or whatever.
Last question. You said something. Do you, just to simplify it, do you know when Iraq is going to become a world power? Before the seventh head, before the eighth head?
After the seventh. When you see when that's what takes place after the seventh, because remember that's the eighth, and he comes and he establishes his kingdom and push to the east, as well as Alexander did, who made his capital in what's called the last war of this earth. I mean the last not the last war, but we see that there was a first apostate that we see that took place in Genesis chapter 10 and 11, and then we see that is an ancient spot that will also be dealt with, which is Babylon. Is actually Neo-Babylon is called the daughter of that system out of everybody else. But yeah, that's so it's eighth. The eighth is when we see, but they're rebuilding Babylon right now. But that king will not be revealed until a certain time, as far as
Okay, in your class, you said that each kingdom was absorbed to the next kingdom.
Absorbed,
meaning absorbed to the next kingdom. So that would mean that the seventh empire would be absorbed to Iraq and not being absorbed to the eighth beast.
No, well, okay. So what do you mean? What are you saying? Like you said that you the seventh kingdom will be composed of the eighth kingdom, or the eighth kingdom will be composed of the seventh kingdom, vice versa, or whatever. Is that what you're saying? In other words, when these different kingdoms come into play, this is like if they come into play when they take over, like the Medes and Persians came.
Like you said, the Babylon, the Medo-Persians took over Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
The Greeks took over the Medo-Persians. The Romans took over the Greeks. So then we go to the seventh empire. You said Iraq would absorb them, or they would be absorbed by Iraq, and then you'll have the eighth beast. So it's not in concession with the class you taught, nor is it in concession with Revelation 17 and 10. If they're all going to be absorbed one after another, then you would have to fit Iraq in there somewhere in between the seventh and the eighth.
Right. Now, Iraq is a geographical location, but it's a headquarters, but it's an empire. So what I'm saying is these are people who's trading with other people for us in a political, economic phase is ruled by the religious system, the mystery system that we see that took place at the Tower of Babel. So what I'm saying is that when I say absorb, just like when Babylon came and took over the Assyrians, they took over their land, and these two basically was absorbed into the Babylonian kingdom. Well, the same thing will happen with the kingdom that we see, which is the eighth kingdom. The headquarters will be in Iraq, or in Babylon, so to speak. I want to say Babylon for better use, basically, but in Babylon, in that area, and they will basically take over the other areas just in that kingdom just as well. Because remember, the 10 kings, their 10 divisions that they had, the eighth kingdom will take over them, and they will give their power unto him. So he has that kingdom to establish his own empire or mountain just as well. So that's what I'm saying, is that if you're looking at it in the sense of where you're saying that it always been like that. These cultures are always mixing. That's why when you look at Revelation 13, what do we see? The beast is basically mixed in with Babylon. It's mixed in with the Grecian and the Persian, and then also the fourth beast. They all mix in together. No, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. We can move on from that. But you did say that the ancient Roman Empire didn't consist of 10 kingdoms. Do you stand on that?
I don't believe the ancient Roman Empire consisted of 10 kingdoms. 10 kings. I believe it consisted of more of an emperor and also possibly princes or something like that. But mainly, we didn't have 10 kings established. There might have been more or less, basically.
Okay. Let me read this. It says 10 Roman kingdoms were, it may help us learn some things about the New World Order during that time. Those 10 Roman kingdoms were formed after the Roman Empire split into the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. Modern-day Turkey was the heart of the Byzantine Empire with its capital, Constantinople. Modern-day Istanbul. The Roman Empire was symbolized in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2 as being the 2 feet of the image he saw. This was God's way of telling them that the Roman Empire would have these 2 branches. Each branch of the Roman Empire would contribute 5 kingdoms of the 10 Roman kingdoms. Five kings of the Western Roman Empire: Britain, France, Spain, or the Iberian Peninsula, including Portugal, Italy, Germany. That's the Western Roman Empire. The 5 kings of the Eastern Roman Empire are Turkey, Greece, Syria, Egypt, including parts of Sudan, and Libya. So it's well documented by multiple sources that the ancient Roman Empire, the 4th beast, did have 10 kingdoms.
Right. I think they had more than 10 kings. I think that's from a preterist perspective, probably some preterist paperwork that you're reading from, where that information comes from, because they always try to make it 10 kings. When you look at it, his empire stretched all the way over from all the way from Rome all the way to when we start dealing with the to the east. So it was composed of more than 10 kings, and I don't know. I think they try to make it 10 kings, but I think that's from a full preterism. It seems to me, to be honest. But
okay, that's fine. I'll leave it up to the audience. Anybody who wants to do your research, you could research it on your own. But let's since we're on the 10 kingdoms and the 10 toes and the 10 horns now, let's go to Daniel 7. Because I know this is pretty much the basis of what you were teaching on your class, Daniel 7 and Daniel 2. So want to start at Daniel 7? Daniel 7. Oh, well, first, before we the little horn is Syria, according to your understanding, correct?
Little horn could be looked at as Antiochus, and then also as the Antichrist too, just as well. So that's why
the little horn in Daniel 7 can be Antiochus.
Oh no, not the little. I thought you were talking about Daniel 8. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the little horn is the Antichrist. Daniel 7.
The little horn is Antichrist, but of course, one man is going to have a kingdom. So what would this little horn's kingdom be?
If you look at it, he comes out of basically one of those three that he plucks up. In other words, there's 10 kings. He comes up as the last horn. So when he comes up as the last horn, he comes up out of one of those divisions that we see what they call the Middle East, and he plucks up three.
Not to interrupt you, but on your class, you said that this little horn or this eighth is the eighth beast. You said the little horn is the eighth beast, and you said you believe it's in an Islamic state, in particular Syria. Do you still hold to that?
Yeah, I hold that he's I don't know if Syria or Assyria is the same thing, but I think they're two different things. But I hold that maybe he's Assyrian. I don't know if that's the same, but they look like they're in the same areas. But Assyria kind of stretch across, and then Syria is a little bit state basically. And so I hold that he comes from that what's called. You say what?
I said true. They're two different things, and one's larger than the other.
Right. And so I hold mainly there's a position to where he comes from that area. You know what I'm saying? And I think that he's listed as the king of the north, just as Antiochus. And I believe that Antiochus was a ruler that was in Syria. You know, he was a ruler that was in Syria. And so because I'm paralleling him with, you know, Antiochus as coming from that area, because he's also called the Assyrian, I believe, in Malachi or Micah. Matter of fact, let me get that for you. You can let me make sure that I get that for, because I don't want to.
Are you saying that that Antiochus was called the Assyrian in Micah 5?
No. I'm saying that the Antichrist, the little horn, he's also called the Assyrian. That's why I draw my conclusion that he's coming from the area. Because when you look at Micah chapter 5, that's what it says.
Okay.
Antiochus is from Syria. He's the king of the north.
Mm-hmm.
But the king is parallel to him, which is the son of perdition. He's called Assyrian in Micah. Where is Micah? Micah 5. Let's see where it's at. All right, so here it is. This is Micah 5:4. And he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they shall abide. For now shall he be great unto the ends of the earth. And this man shall be the peace, when the Assyrian shall come in into our land. And when he shall tread in our places, then shall we rise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. And they shall waste the land of the Assyria of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod in the interest thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. It says, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people, as a dew from the Lord, as a shower upon the grass, and a chariot from the man, nor waited for the sons of men. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts, and the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of the sheep. So I believe that this verse is in connection with what he will be. You know what I'm saying? Because when we start looking at Micah, it's kind of talking about some things just as well when we start looking at the top too, as far as Christ.
Is that the only place you'll go to substantiate him being Assyrian versus Syrian?
Basically, I think, you know what I'm saying, that's what I see right there as being Assyrian, coming out of that area, which would still be, you know what I'm saying, dealing with the 10 kings. Yeah.
They right next to each other.
Okay, so we'll just stick with that then. Syria or Assyria, again, they're closely bordered, so we'll stick with that being the eighth beast. Got 1 point. I want to go to Revelation 17, which again it says verse 11, which you brought out on your class, which is pretty good, but I just wanted you to clarify how this could work if the eighth beast was Syria or Assyrian. I'm sorry, Syria or Assyria. It says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition. So how is the eighth beast of one of the seven? How does Assyria or Syria come out of one of the seven of your heads, of your beasts, how you have it?
Right.
It has to be a continuation of previous beasts.
Right. And so there's two interpretations to this, and some dispensationalists, they hold to I think the Assyrian, more so the Assyrian kingdom, far as the deity that's behind the Assyrian kingdom. Because remember, I told you that this text right here, the beast consists of three things: a spirit out of the bottomless pit that is the power behind the dictator, which is the man, the beast, and then also the system, which is the kings and stuff, which is the social system. And so when we look at it, it says, and the beast that was. So he's telling John the beast was, but he's not in your day, John. It says, and he is not, because he's not in John's day. And he says, even he is the eighth. In other words, he is the eighth. We already understand what the eighth was, and we didn't establish that. It says, and it's of the seven. So he's one of the seven, and go off into perdition. When you see this text to say go off into perdition, is really talking about the spirit, because the spirit in Revelations 11, let's look at it. Revelations 11, this spirit was here and now is locked up and will be released. And this what heals either that empire, that eighth empire. That's why I said it was, before the five, it was one of the, he says, well, let's look at it. Let's look at it because I want to make sure that we look at it, we read it, and we don't get caught up. All right, so when you look at 14, when you look at 7, it says, and when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and shall kill them, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. So when we look at this beast right here, right? This beast that we see is the beast that's going to come up out of the bottomless pit. And let me see something. Where is it at? 7. Okay, yeah. So Yeah. So this beast that we see right here, he's sent out of the bottomless pit, and this is the beast that we see. That is the power behind the very Antichrist is in Revelations 11. I mean 17.
Right. So the beast that you're talking about in Revelation 13, he has a mark. What is the mark of the beast?
Well, I don't know what the mark of the beast is. It doesn't. I mean, it says a man's number, or it equals out to a man's number. But I know it's a physical mark because you can't do nothing but buy, sell, or trade, and it's a mindset to just get the mark. So I don't know what that mark is. I know that it equals out to man's number. Some people say 666, but I'm not sure. But it's in their foreheads and it's also on their hands or something like that.
Okay, I would agree with you to a degree that is physical. All right, so let's for the sake of time, let's get into Daniel 7 and Daniel 2. We can start at verse 7. You said that Daniel didn't see the total 8 beasts. He only seen the 4 beasts of his time.
Yes.
Starting with his time, and then on to the future of 4 beasts. Okay. And the 4 beasts he's seen was Babylon, Medo-Persians, Greeks, and the Romans. Correct? The Roman Empire.
Yes, and 10 also horns, and the 11.
Okay, now the only problem I have with the breakdown that you have on, besides the little horn being the Antichrist, which will explain our stance on it if you would like. You're saying that the 10 horns aren't a part of the 4th beast, correct?
No, the 10 horns are part of the 4th beast. Yeah, it's revised wrong.
Okay, so they're a part of the Roman Empire. They're just not. They weren't a part of it in that time.
Right. Yeah, in that time, because remember it says in Revelations 10:17 that the 10 kings will give their power unto that beast at that time, which is the 8th kingdom. They would give their power unto him and reign with him 1 hour. So they have to be in his time. And then Christ is said to come back in Daniel chapter 7 to war against the beast and those 10 kings. So it couldn't be in the time of the Roman Empire, which you said they had 10 kings. It couldn't be in that time. It has to be in the latter times.
Well, if according to our understanding, we believe that the EU and NATO is the revised Roman Empire. So we would say, even when you talked about the divisions of the EU, they still go back to the 10 common markets of Europe. So that's why we would say that,
i.e., real quick to clarify what we mean by that, i.e., you have a nation like France, right? Mm-hmm. We got France, we got Belgium, we got Luxembourg, we got Monte Carlo. That's all France. And one time that was all France. Mm-hmm. Now it's sectioned off Belgium, Luxembourg, Monte Carlo. You understand what I'm saying? So what we're saying is that we have the understanding that all of these nations that are a part of the European Union, and that stretches out into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which would include Canada and America, were founded by one of these original branches of the Roman Empire, an original within the Roman Empire. You see what I'm saying?
Right. So let me ask you a question. The European Union right now has I want to say 28 states, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So that has to be sized down to 10. So in order to size that down to 10, that's going to take some work.
What we're saying is it doesn't need to be sized down, because of those 28, they all stem from 10 original states. So though they may be under this certain auspice, they all go back to these 10 original.
Right. Okay. I'm open to that. You know, that could be, but I know does the European Union do they stretch towards Asia too? Do they have some lands in Asia? Because I believe that there's certain lands that Russia has that the European Union it has to get in order for to stretch as that original Roman Empire. And I think they just have the West, right? Do they have anything that's in the East?
They have some. the main thing that they'll have that really is in Asia is Asia, what we see in the Bible known as Asia, which is Turkey. You see what I'm saying? That's their main thing in the East, but their membership is a thing of controversy even now, you know.
What about Africa? Because there also has to be, because remember the Roman Empire consisted of around that border.
True.
Yeah, so so this is why I say a tricontinental war has to take place to establish back those 10 divisions, and I said it's going to be kind of sized down to where it's under 10 kings, because remember to establish a new world order, you can't really have that many like that. It has to be one. Yeah, so that's why I interpret it like that. But I'm open for that though. I will look at that.
All right, go ahead.
Verse is it verse 20? Daniel 7 and 20. It says that and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell. So it's saying that this horn will be springing up from the same empire as the 10 horns. How can we find, if you hold that, you know, the little horn is Syria or Assyria, how could we find that Syria or Assyria will spring up out of the revised Roman Empire?
Okay, I think that for the most part, we see that when you start dealing with the Grecian Empire, right? I think he look at Turkey, Greece, Syria, and also Egypt. And when when you start dealing with these states, you start looking at that. Out of Syria was the king of the north, which was Antiochus, right? It was Antiochus. He was the king of the north, I believe. I believe it was Syria in the area. I'm not sure, but I think it was Syria. So what I'm saying is that these empires are basically, whether if it was the Grecian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, they had headquarters where they ruled at. So I believe that the headquarters of this 8th kingdom that comes out of these 10 will be in Babylon, and then position itself later on in Jerusalem. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that for the most part, these kingdoms are just all in this vicinity or these areas is locked in there, and these places have headquarters, and one of the headquarters of the 8th kingdom is in Iraq, whereas the 7th kingdom, I don't know where would that be positioned? It might be in Rome. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure where's that 7th kingdom positioned at. You know, I can hold to that position to where it might be in Rome. You know what I'm saying? But the 8th kingdom, it opposes that 7th kingdom, and this is why the 7th kingdom continue for a short space of time, because it says that in Daniel chapter 7. Actually, he plucks up 3 of those 10. Remember, so he's against them.
Right. So Turkey, you mentioned Turkey. Did you know Turkey is a part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization?
Well, I didn't know that it was part of that. I thought Turkey was NATO, right?
Yeah, NATO.
Yeah, NATO.
Turkey is NATO. Yeah, they got the biggest, second biggest air force in NATO. Matter of fact, after we gave them matter of fact, we gave them their fighters, and so they have the second biggest air force. And matter of fact, they actually, you know, we waiting on them to see what they're gonna do, because they kind of shifty
playing defense.
Yeah.
Okay. In Daniel 2, how many kingdoms does Daniel see on the statue?
We got Babylon, we got Medes and Persians, the Grecians, and the Roman Empire, and we have the toes, which is the 10 kings. We don't see the 11th toe there, but we see and these are symbolic as we see the 10 horns and also the 10 kings in Revelations, but we don't see the 11th toe there. We just see the 10 kings, and we see also the 2 legs.
There's an 11th toe.
We don't see the 11th toe until 2nd King, Daniel chapter 2. He doesn't give us that.
Okay, so but are you saying that there is an 11th toe, we just don't see it there?
Yeah, we don't see it because remember when we go to Daniel chapter 7, that's when he started talking about the 11 horns. Now remember the 10 horns are looked at as the 10 toes, remember? Because the fourth beast, out of the fourth beast come forth the 10 toes. And then from the 10 toes, the 10 horns, from the 10 horns comes forth the 11 horn. Now remember, you got West Rome, you got the West Empire, West Roman Empire, the west of the Roman Empire and the east, the two legs. Out from the two legs come forth what? The toes. So we got the toes. And so we don't see there should be 11 total. He doesn't show us that. Now remember, the toes are kings. So when he get to 7, that's when he starts showing us these are kings, and these horns are kings, which is symbolic of those toes. Is over. I don't know if if I'm saying it right, or articulating it properly. But
so there's there's an imaginary 11th toe on the statue. The statue like a mute.
Right. So the big toe ain't the last big toe ain't came out yet. You know what I'm saying? So he don't see that yet. He doesn't start talking about that 11.
He sees that later when he sees the beast. Is what you're saying?
Right. Right now he see the 11 horn comes up and then it plucks up 3 of those, which would have been the toes over there. So, but he basically see the breaking up of the West. And see, when you talk about the miry clay and the what is it, miry clay and metal, or what was it? It was something that was
iron, clay and iron.
Yeah, clay and iron. What that is talking about that the kingdom will be partially strong because the royal line. When we start dealing with the miry clay, this kingdom is not no more built on a royal lineage. It's built on now, for the East, I believe, it's built on a mixture of men mingling themselves with the royal line. So that's why it's going to be partially strong and partially strong, and also weak or whatever at the same time, because they're mixed. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so dealing with the royal line and how the Romans, of course, were the Romans white people?
I've seen it goes back as far as probably when they said that the Romans wasn't around. I want to say linguistically, and also what we see visually, and we see some Trojans. We see Rome. We see some people that's coming from that area. They look like them. I'm not sure, but I do know that there was Europeans that was up there, and they was not black. For instance, I think, me personally, this what I want to say. I think when you say Ham, right, and you look at, there's a son that is of Ham, which is Heth. Heth is not black. He's not me and your color. You know what I'm saying? And so,
you seen this white Hamite?
Yeah, I believe there is. I believe that the biggest deception that the Europeans have told us is that all Hamites are black. I don't believe that. I believe that there are Hamites that are of a lighter colors. You know what I'm saying? But that's just my opinion. And when I historically, when
Heth was Heth, they were cave people, correct?
Heth, no, well, I wouldn't say all of us really was cave people. Once you start really dealing with the information, we had mountain gods. We come from the mountains. That's what, all of our gods is mountains. These are called the primordial mounds. And so that's why we came up out of where we came up. Egypt came out making primordial mounds right there, which is the pyramids. These are just man-made mountains.
The mystery systems deal with going within a cave, getting
right. If you go to,
okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, if you go to the Native Americans, some of their weddings are held in mountains. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna tell y'all something about the mountains too. This is where actually a lot of white people begin to start come forth and pick up their genes from dealing with mining. Because when we start looking at the Sumerians and they start looking at them with lapis lazuli in their eyes, and they were miners and they dealt with metals. And so when you deal with metals and you start messing with them, they start messing with your genomes and your sequences. You start picking up different genes as well as the climate too. So I think that when we start looking at these different cultures that's coming about, they come about because of these mutations on their chromosomes, whether on the Y or the X. And so I think that that's the whole deal with that, is because when we start looking at these people, we know that everybody was of a darker hue. You know what I'm saying? And then they begin to spring out from that. So I think that those people probably up north, some of them people was dealing with a lighter hue of melanin. I don't believe white people was white. I believe white people was just a lighter hue of melanin. You know what I'm saying? That's what I believe.
Right. Okay. So I just want to know, why is it so hard for you to say that Romans were white people?
Because you had you had people that was in Rome, it was black. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like the civilization, like today. If I say today America, right, and we go from 1,000 years from now, America is a cultural diversity of people. But if we go 1,000 years from now, we will come back and say, well, this country was built, this country was headed by Europeans, but within this country, there was a civilization that helped build the country. There was a diversity of people. So that's what I'm saying. So that's what Egypt was. Egypt was, if you're listening to the Afrocentrics tell you that Egypt was all black, they lying, because they was dealing with.
Look at the wall.
Huh? I'm sorry. Yeah, look at the wall. Right. Right.
Yeah. So was Herod?
No, the question really is this: were the Latins white people?
Yeah,
the original Latins that the Latin language comes from, that were as being a ruling class of Rome.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't even looked at the Latins or studied the Latins. I've only studied some of the Greeks, Egypt. Y'all know I studied Egypt a lot, but yeah. I haven't studied. I studied some of the Greeks. I ain't really dove off into all the Greeks, but linguistically, I'm starting to realize that the Greeks was actually there from a while back. We just don't see them till about 600 BC. But when you start looking at some of the language that was in the Bible that was translated into some of the Greek language and some of the stuff that, that Daniel was dealing with when he was dealing with Aramaic and some of the Greek stuff and transliterations, these people was dealing with Greeks back then. Because if you look at it, your boy in he brought it out in Joel. It says the Greeks. It says the Zidonians
told us to the Greeks. So
right. So they've been there, and that was around 800 something BC. But and later on, historians will say, well, we don't see the Greeks till 600, but they always been there. You had wars that they won against the Hittites, the Minoans,
even Rome been there past it.
Right. So that's the whole.
I would say like he said, the ruling class of the Latins.
Like when we take a look at the pagan, especially the pagan Roman Empire, right? The one that's on the scene during the time of Christ, and the ruling class of those people, because we know, especially when we deal with going about 173 AD, when you have the rise of the Sicarii dynasty, there's pretty much no debate on whether the Sicarii dynasty was Negro or whether it was black. And even before that, when you deal with Priscillian's Niger, you see what I'm saying? And the generals that was warring for power and control of the Roman Empire, but doing it through military strength as opposed to how the white man was doing it when they had control of the Roman Empire, which was just like you said, through nobility. You had the Caesars, the triumvirate, you had all these various things. But forward, we're seeing black people rise up in the rulership during that time and in the medieval times and the Dark Ages. But we're talking about during the time of Christ and the 4 times when we got Julius Caesar, Caesar Augustus, etc. with these white folks.
I'm not, you know what? I haven't done the homework on it. I wouldn't even lie to you about it. I haven't done it. So I wouldn't be able to even answer that, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, how about this? Was King Herod an Edomite?
Yes, he was. King
Herod was an Edomite. Okay. So,
you know my position on that, though. I hold the same position the Nazi hold it. Edomites are Arabs.
But Arabs, right?
Well, if maybe that's why you were so reluctant to
say that the Romans was
white people. That the Romans were white people, because you know the proofs in the pudding that the Romans were Edomites, and they were white people.
The Edomite Empire.
Well, I wouldn't say I would. Hold on for a minute. I think I might be talking to them. Hold
on. They calling them.
They gotta shut this down.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, they said I was talking too loud, so I gotta be quiet a little bit.
Okay, yeah, we could keep it a little quiet. So the reason that we hold to Babylon actually being a location and not a religious system, of course, because we brought out how it says great city. And you say, the religious system has to have a location. Prophecies, like we agree with you how you say that in Jeremiah and Isaiah, a lot of the prophecies were parallel with that time and the future. We do agree with you on that. But there's a lot of things that didn't happen to us, being that, of course, we believe we're the Israelites. That has to manifest in an actual location, which we would say modern day Babylon.
Because this is my thing, right? Babylon has always historically been a geographical locale, a country, correct? Or a city-state, right?
Right.
So I would say that it would always have to be a city-state. Does the city-state have a philosophy, ideology, or what one would call a religion, of course, because we see this going all the way back to Genesis 10, Genesis 11, right? But dealing with the fact that we know we have partial fulfillments in the contemporary prophets of ancient Babylon, the one that Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Jeremiah is dealing with, because we have the partial fulfillments, it still is talking about this place, this great location, this great city-state where all of these things are going to be happening, to where it's not just a religious hub, like i.e. a Vatican City. Who is getting oppressed at, just for example, who can't even get oppressed at Vatican City, right? But if we look at it as more of a city-state or a nation or a country here, now we're looking at it as a place where people are getting oppressed, people are getting sold as merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we hold that's kind of why we object to the position we hold to the position that we have as Babylon being America on that. You see what I'm saying? Because we can clearly see, like you said they're going to build up that ancient city of Babylon as a huge trading hub, et cetera, which is plausible. But if we take a look at America, the greatest trading hub, and not the greatest trading hub in the world, where people from all over the world is coming here to trade. It's got all these various ports up and down the West Coast, down south. You got New Orleans, you got the Eastern Seaboard. You see what I'm saying? So we see all these things in place right now here. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to something potentially happening down the line in Babel, in a place where now we have to deal with, especially the fulfillment of Jeremiah 50. You brought up Jeremiah 50 a lot. Now, Jeremiah 50 and 33, somebody get it for me real quick. Jeremiah 50 and 33.
Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33, it says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together."
So we don't see that happening in ancient Babylon. We don't see the children of Israel and the children of Judah being oppressed together. We only see the children of Judah being oppressed, because at that time, the Assyrian captivity for the northern kingdom, prior to Nimrod coming in, not Nimrod, rather, Nebuchadnezzar coming and conquering the Assyrian captivity. So after that, that's when we see the dispersal of the northern kingdom, right? We see them being scattered. Time of Babylon, ancient Babylon, you only see Judah, Benjamin, and Levi being oppressed there. So when is both kingdoms and the whole nation in totality going to be oppressed by Babylon?
Well, actually, when you see in the Assyrian kingdom, right? When you look at the Assyrian kingdom, Isaiah says that the king of Babylon was going to take over the Assyrians. So when you look at him taking over the Assyrians, Judah and Israel is actually being oppressed at that time, because when you look at it, he comes and he takes over the very areas of Assyria. So I think that if that's what you're saying when it comes to according to them being oppressed.
Here's why I'll object to that. Get that in Ezra real quick.
All right, the book of Ezra, chapter 1. Ezra chapter 1, I believe it's
3 or 4, or is it 1?
It is 1.
Go ahead.
Actually, Ezra chapter 1, verse 1. Now, in the first year of Cyrus,
so we got Cyrus, which servant of the Lord propels him into power and tells him what he needs to do. So here he is fulfilling on what the instructions that the Lord gave him. Right, read.
King of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdoms and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven have given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he have charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people?
So he makes this decree to everybody that's under his control. He says, who among you of these people, right, Reed?
His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord of God of Israel, which is in Jerusalem.
Keep going.
And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver and with gold and with goods and with beasts, beside the freewill offering of the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin and the priests and the Levites.
See, so we only got 3 tribes there. He makes that decree to his whole kingdom for all the Israelites to come forth, and only 3 tribes present themselves, letting you know that the northern kingdom tribes, wherever they were dispersed to, it was not within the known world at that time, because they didn't get the decree, they didn't get the message, they didn't come forward. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Have you ever did a study on these actual names that you see in Ezra chapter 2?
2. What is naming all the people that's coming forward?
Well, yeah.
Right. When you do a study on that and you trace it back to the Book of Chronicles, then you start to see that there was also other tribes that was among them besides the southern kingdom. Now, to prove that,
in Chronicles, it talks about it talks about 6 northern kingdom tribes that a remnant of them came and clave to Judah, right?
Right. And if you look at it, the northern kingdom started coming back after the Assyrian captivity. I mean, doing this because they was taken 166 years before the Babylonian captivity of the southern tribe. That kingdom, they started to come back towards the south because they knew that they was an opposite. Because they was coming back before they was finna go into captivity, because they knew what God spoke or prophesied about the Assyrian king coming to come get them. So they started to come back to the south. To prove that, if you look at Ezra chapter 2, it's going to show you that these other kings, what took place. Ezra chapter 2, watch what it says. It says, so this is 70. This is Ezra 2 and verse 70. Then there's some more also too. But it says, so the priests and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the porters and the Nethinims are dwelt in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. And to prove that all Israel was there, when you look at Ezra chapter 4, watch what it says. Watch what it says in Ezra chapter 4. It says, that's why when you come back and you look at Christ in his times, and you look at Acts chapter 2, you see that those northern tribes are also coming up to keep the feast days just as well. Where is it at? Hold on. It's in Ezra chapter 6. That's what it is. It's Ezra 6. Here it is right here. Okay, it says, all right, so let's look at 16. It says, and the children of Israel, the priests and the Levites and the rest of the children of captivity, kept the dedication of the house of God. And they offered the dedication of the house of God 100 bullocks, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and for a sin offering for all Israel. It says 12 he-goats, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. And they set the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their courses for the service of God. It says, which is at Jerusalem. And it is written in the book of Moses, and the children of captivity kept the Passover upon the 14th day of the first month. It says, for the priests and the Levites were purified together. All of them were pure and killed the Passover for all the children of the captivity. It says, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves. And the children of Israel, which were come again out of captivity, and all such as had separated themselves unto them. Notice it says separate themselves unto them from the filthiness of the heathen of the land, to seek the Lord God of Israel, did eat. Watch what it says. And kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with joy. For the Lord had made them joyful and turned the heart of the king of Assyria unto them to strengthen their hands and the work of the house of God, the God of Israel. So what happened is Isaiah, he talks about how the king of Babylon took over the Assyrian, but we don't see that. But it says that it's prophesied that he's going to take over the Assyrians. And so when he takes over the Assyrians, he absorbs that province. So not only did Israel not only did all Judah didn't come back to the land. They actually had a city that was in Iraq. And to be honest, historically, and if you think I'm lying, you can ask Ron Shields because he'll tell you. Historically, Nebuchadnezzar on the Cyrus cylinder, he actually did not let back. I mean, he actually built other temples just as well too. I'm saying he didn't just build Israel's temple; he built the temple of Babylon unto Mordok, and then also he caused Israel's temple to be built, and that's historically documented. We have that in archaeology. But he did build a temple.
What is that, Micah? Everybody shall walk after the name of their own God, but Israel shall walk after the name of the Lord.
Right, definitely. And so when you look at 22, it says the king of Assyria. That lets you know that the king of Babylon had actually took over Assyria, and they was calling him the king of Assyria because he took over that place.
Sure. Right, they was calling me. But I would say that in the context of Ezra, the 6th chapter, when it's saying children of Israel, it's not singling out because it's referring to it's referring to just the Israelites as the Israelites. The only people you see separated in this context in this whole chapter is the Levites, which by nature the Levites are separate. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I wouldn't say that this means the northern kingdom was there. And then also, like when we go into the New Testament, outside of Anna, where is the northern kingdom in the whole New Testament?
When you look in the whole New Testament and you look at the areas that you see, you can see that when it's talking about the Parthenians, the Scythians, the Elamites. When you go to Isaiah 11, it tells you the same thing, that these people are in these areas. And so when you look at it, and you look at these areas, all of these people, the northern kingdom, are in these spots. You can see. And so
so what you're saying is the Gentiles are Israelites. That's what you're saying in the New Testament?
No, I'm not saying that they. I mean, they. What do you mean they're Israelites?
Like basically, because who Paul was writing to are these people in those areas. So what you're saying, those people in those areas, those were Israelites.
Well, there's a distinction between those people and the Israelites. Now, if you want to, have
okay, no, that's why I'm asking you: are they Israelites or not? Because it's kind of seems like you saying what we saying. Them people you read about who Paul is writing to them is Israelites.
Right, they in those areas, and they are called, the Goyim because they're among the Goyim. They are called Gentiles. Right, but at the same time, Paul is writing to non-Israelites. Now, if you want to debate that, we can debate that. We ain't got to have about that.
all right. That was potential for sure. Go ahead.
You brought out a lot of post-Babylonian points. We were speaking on specifically what the Bible's saying the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom was going to be oppressed in this Babylon together. You brought out a few post-Babylonian points that there were some northern kingdom appearances there, but that's not during the occupancy of Babylon.
What do you mean?
For example, you went to Ezra. He pointed out Jeremiah 50 and 33 that both kingdoms will be oppressed together, will be in captivity together. You in turn went to Ezra chapter 2 and Ezra chapter 6, which is post-Babylon. This is during the time of the Medo-Persians occupying us. You see? So he was just trying to point out that we weren't in the Babylonian location in captivity together as both kingdoms.
No, actually, when you look at it, not all of, if you look at it, do you know where you could find that in the Bible where where Nebuchadnezzar and his fathers and them came and took the Assyrian kingdom? Do you know where you can find that at? It's in Isaiah. It's in Isaiah. Because remember, the king of Babylon, and also when we start looking at the Assyrian king, and then we start looking at Egypt, they was fighting each other during that time. Because remember, Josiah, before Josiah came out to fight against the king of Egypt, and then guess who was fighting up there? Guess who he was fighting against? He was fighting against one of the Assyrian kings up north, right? And Josiah came out to come and fight him. But when you look at this, is when Israel was finna start going into captivity. They went into captivity, I believe, 166 or 33. I'm sorry, 133 or 66 years. The southern kingdom after the northern kingdom. Now, when you look at it, Babylon came in, he took over the Assyrian kingdom. We just read that in Ezra. So when we look at the captivity, they was in captivity with each other up under the Babylonian kingdom, because when the Babylonians came in, that's their province now. And so these two people are in captivity. And so when you look at it, he didn't just go to the southern kingdom of the king of Babylon and just say, well, I'm just going to take the southern kingdom into captivity and take them over there. Whoever was in those provinces was going to wherever they need to go.
Okay. So all right. So just real quick, we got when is Gog and Magog gonna think of evil thought?
Gog and Magog that can happen. There's two events of this. There's an event that takes place after the 1,000-year reign.
Okay, post-millennial.
Yeah, and when the Antichrist the Satan is released, and he stir up the northern parts, as well as Iran and Persia and the Ethiopians, I believe. That event takes place.
That's Ezekiel 30.
Right.
And then we got Revelations 20, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, before then, the Antichrist himself stirs up the people in the north. This is when we look at Revelation chapter 12, when Israel runs and they go into the wilderness, remember? Well, he goes up north, and when Christ comes back, Christ goes to Edom, remember? He goes to the Basra. Well, when he comes to Basra, before he came to Basra, he went up north to deal with Gog and with Magog to get them in order, and he conquered them, and they joined, so they come down to Basra to come to destroy Israel that's in the wilderness. And so that's how I see it, and that's my interpretation of that. I'm open for, what I'm saying?
Okay. So what you're saying is one part of it is post-millennial reign, but the other part of it is when Christ returns to the earth.
Right, definitely.
Okay, all right. You had anything else?
Yeah, I want to know why after the Babylonian captivity, if both kingdoms were in captivity together, why didn't the north come back to Israel? Why didn't the north come back to Israel or Jerusalem
in numbers
with the southern kingdom?
Because we always gonna have a remnant, and when you got a remnant, they're not being reckoned like that. That's why you see during the Roman times, Israel ain't really referred to Israel like that. It's referred to Judah. It's referred to the Jews. You see what I'm saying? So that's basically what we're saying is, why aren't all these people from the northern kingdom coming down? Why is it only some of them? You see what I'm saying?
And also to add to that, not even the fact that they're a remnant, because you said they started coming back after that, but we see that it was just the three kingdoms in Ezra chapter 1. Why didn't they come back?
Where are the chief? Where are their judges? Where are the Ephraimite judges, the Issacharite, the Zebulunite judges? We're only seeing the chiefs of the south come.
Right. Well, now when you start doing a study on it, and I'm gonna give y'all that information, you trace their names back, you're gonna start seeing that. Guess what? That the northern tribes, some of the northern tribes is there too, because they came back because they came and started keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Now
when did they come back?
Yeah, that's the question.
After when Cyrus released them, look at Revelations 11 and look what it says. It says that in Revelations 11, we know they was in captivity with them, because when you look at Revelations 11, You see Elam there. Who was there in Elam? It was them Jews. It was the northern tribe, and the Jews was in Elam too. You look at Assyria. Who was in Assyria? The northern tribe was in Assyria. And then also we see that Paul was born where? Paul was born in Tarshish. So Paul was in Assyria. So Syria, whatever. I know it's up there the same place. Assyria is a big broad place, but it's up there. And so what I'm saying is I can show y'all that and the northern kingdoms, when the northern kings, the tribes, they came back the ones they wanted to keep the commandments, law, statutes, and commandments, and stay there. Now,
did they come back initially with, let's say they were both in captivity together, but only the southern kingdom went back to Jerusalem, and then how long was it after, or did they both, all two kingdoms go? Because you said some of the tribes, so initially it had to be just the southern kingdom, and then a few tribes came after that. What was the time frame on that?
Well, I think that it was right when he released them, or it could have been in portions. When he released them, they started going back to the land. Because when you look at Acts chapter 2, you can see that they was in these areas and they was coming back from them lands to keep the Passovers. So even though if they didn't initially come back, they still was coming to keep the Passover, because the law commanded that you come to those areas to keep the Passover, as Paul used to come to keep it too.
Right. So why I'm asking is because if both kingdoms came back together, why isn't the chief leaders of the northern tribes reckoned in Ezekiel 1?
And that's why I got to give to you. I'm gonna get that to you and show you that those people that's listed in those things, I'm gonna show you to where there's actually northerners that's with them, and prove that there's northerners, because I have the information for that.
But there's not any chiefs of the tribes. Like, look, like it says, Ezra 1:5. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah, Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites. So we see that the chief leaders and fathers of these three tribes up and entertained the decree, but we don't see the chief leaders or fathers of Ephraim. We don't see the chief leaders or father of Zebulun. We don't see the chief leaders and fathers of Issachar. Why don't we see the chiefs and leaders and fathers of these tribes?
Because I believe that Judah is before all of these people, first of all. So it's mentioning them because they're the ones the scepter is going to come from. So they're the governors of the people. They're the head over all the tribes. And so, like I say, if you look at it, it's telling you right there that all Israel came back and they was actually offering. But I'm going to tell you this, and you can study this. Not all of Judah came back. Daniel didn't come back. Nehemiah didn't come back. They had cities over that was in Iraq. So it's a whole city. Think I'm lying?
Well, I would say the majority of the southern kingdom.
Yeah.
And then they were also coming back shortly after, because it says their brothers from afar would come and help build the temple. So you mentioned Judah because they're the head tribe, but it mentions Benjamin. Why would it mention Benjamin? What's so special about Benjamin that it's singled out from the 12 tribes and being mentioned, and the other tribes aren't being mentioned?
I couldn't tell you that. Only thing I can tell you is when I get the information to you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So when I say this is my last question. When I say the house of Judah, what does that mean?
You basically talking about Judah, you know what I'm saying? Or the southern kingdom when they the ones who stayed.
The southern kingdom. The house of Judah is the southern kingdom. I would agree. When I say the house of Israel, what does that mean?
You're talking about the northern kingdom, and it also can be talking about the whole house of Israel.
Okay, the northern kingdom. So when I read Jeremiah 3:18, it says, "In those days, the house of Judah, the southern kingdom, shall walk with the house of Israel, the northern kingdom, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers." So this prophecy is saying in this Babylon, in this land of the north, which Zechariah tells you the land of the north is synonymous with Babylon, that majority of both kingdoms will come back to the land after being in this certain captivity. But we can't see that happening in ancient Babylon.
Well, you just see a portion. You don't see both kingdoms. But when you look at in Christ's time in 70 AD, these guys are coming back to the land, keeping the feast days. They even got synagogues that set up in their areas. So when you say
who kept the feast days, in the that was the northern kingdom?
Look at Acts chapter
in the
2.
New Testament.
Look at Acts chapter 2, and you will see that Acts chapter 2, and then they had synagogues also in those various places. That's why when Paul is writing to them,
what is a Jew to you?
A Jew can be a northerner or a southerner, but it's mainly somebody that comes to reside back into the house of Judah and coming up under the law, statutes, and commandments. And so when you say a
Where in
Jew,
the Bible that a Jew can be a northerner?
I mean, look at Chronicles. Look at what you call too. A Jew can be also a person that is not look at Ruth. I mean not Ruth. What is it? Mordecai and what you call?
You talking about Esther? You know that word for Jew is not the word for Judah.
What is it? It's Yehudi, ain't it?
No, it's not. It's a whole nother word.
What is it?
Yeah, that word. That what are you talking about? What it says? Many became Jews.
Yeah.
That's a word that's only used right there. Basically, meaning to become Judaized.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only used in the Bible.
Not like they, of course, they can't literally become Jews, but they start cleaving to the custom.
Yeah, right. So I had to look into it and check it out. But what I'm saying is even in the Apocrypha, there's certain things that a Jew had begin to be looked at not just as the tribe of Judah, but Jews overall that came. I mean, Jews.
All nations. I mean, all the tribes, which is true. But the reason why they all begin to be referred to as Jews is because Jews were predominant. I'll give you an example. You might have me, like I'm Haitian, right? We got a brother, another Haitian brother, a brother from the Bahamas, right? But we all would be called African American, but that's really only y'all. We technically ain't African American. You see what I'm saying? But we all will get grouped into it because the blacks in America outnumber those of us in the islands and elsewhere. You see what I'm saying? So they'll group us all in. If you come to America, it don't matter of what island or whatever you come from, they classify all of us as African American. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Definitely.
So in the same way, because of the majority is African American. So in the same way, you got Jew being used to say that's all of Israel, but that's because the tribe of Judah, especially in the kingdom of Judah, partly was vastly predominant over the other tribes.
Right. I agree with that. But yeah, man, it's been real in the field, man. I appreciate you, brothers, man.
Last question. A lot of people look at Christians and say that you guys don't push keeping the law. So I just wanted to ask you this one small question. Do Christians, when you guys say you don't keep the law, do you guys still, like, for instance, you guys are not okay with homosexuality, right? Because I done seen some gay pastors that are preaching the word.
They got that one just
they had a gay pastor preaching the word.
I look, I ain't with that, and that's you shouldn't be doing that. Even a natural man, a man of this natural, he knows that that's unnatural. You know what I'm saying? Because it says that, and so that's perverted.
So what about a man that cross dresses, like he puts on women's clothes and heels and
he going to the lake of fire. It says effeminate man go to the lake of fire. That's what it says.
Okay, so do you feel like we should have those type of people as like our best friends?
I mean, not really. You shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know somebody that's dressing up in girls' clothes.
Well, like, what does it say in 1 Corinthians? It say how do we have fellowship with the temple of Baal? Right?
Well, I asked you that because Vocab Malone, the leader of the Sheild Squad, he has a best friend named David Woods, and he dresses in his wife's underwear and heels and stockings.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
You ain't know about that, bro?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they got a video going around. Look it up when we get off.
Right, yeah. But yeah, he gonna have to tell
us in there and his wife whole get up, bro.
Yeah, right. You have to cancel about that, man. So,
he gonna have to tell
man. I'm glad we were able to have a peaceful dialogue, so brothers can keep building with different brothers and coming on the show. and let these guys know we are not the monsters they try to paint us out to be. I might be a monster on the highways and byways. I might be a monster in the booth. But when we do these sit downs, we try to keep it cool, calm, collective, and peaceful, and also scholastic.
And just reason, you know, to try, because we all just trying to figure it out and decipher the message that the Most High left for us. You know what I mean? So we can get in accordance with what, you know, he wants, you know, what's going to bring us salvation. You know what I'm saying? So it's important. But yeah, man, we appreciate it. It's always good building.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you, brothers, man. I'll be getting at y'all with those turbans, man. I'm gonna grab me a couple of about 2 or 3 of them, man. So I seen the site, so I'm gonna grab some. Appreciate you, brothers, man, for having me to come on, man. So I definitely be getting at y'all tomorrow on that, you know, because I told my wife, I said I like the little things they got on their head, you know. I got, you know what I'm saying? But peace and blessings to you, brothers, man. Appreciate y'all, man. Peace.
Oh, brothers, shalom.
So yeah, so with that, the good build, man, and reasoning, you know, we more so discussing than debating, you know what I mean? But you know, this Babylon thing especially is like, you know, it's a controversy. Like I said, I'm seeing a spike in people who believe that Israel is actually Babylon or Jerusalem is Babylon. I'm seeing the spike in brothers taking hold to that it's the Catholic Church. So then we also got the school of thought that that this brother is bringing forth. So it's good to reason and see, okay, what points, you know, where is this brother coming from with that? So number one, we can get an understanding, like, especially if y'all seen in the beginning a lot of questions, and then, you know, come into that understanding where, okay, I see where you're going with this. I see where you're coming from here. Why? Because as it is written, we got to understand first, then rebuke. Everybody just want to cut all the time, but sometimes you got to know what the hell somebody talking about before you cut them. You know what I mean? Or before you try to dissect and, you know, decipher certain things, you have to fully understand the point that he's coming at. Because I remember the first time we done had 2 Trinity debates, really more. Because how many did you do on the Trinity?
I think I did 3.
You did 3. He did 3. Does that count the one we did with them 2? You did the white boy, right?
Yeah, I did the Irish guy. You did G-Con. No, I'm sorry.
I did Brother J.
Yeah, then we did him again. That's 3.
We did
I think we did like 4 or 5, honestly.
Yeah, so, but the thing is, we did not, our understanding of the Trinity, that's why they make the statement that they made in the beginning of the debate that we had with J and K Dub is whatchamacallit. They said, we don't believe Christ is the Father. Because I see certain brothers on the comment board, certain people on Facebook, and even we used to hold to the, so y'all believe Christ is the Father? No, they don't believe that. And it's a complicated and confusing way that they explain it, but they don't exactly believe that. You see what I'm saying? But before I heard Vocab explain this, I didn't have that understanding. So when you don't have that understanding, if you try to attack them certain ways, the blows ain't gonna stick. Why? Because it's not what you got to attack what they actually believe. You know what I mean? But before you can attack what somebody believes, you have to understand what they believe. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to just build and gather this intel and then take back and go, okay, this is what they believe, this and that, because we didn't know a lot of these things. And the brother Laron's perspective is unique. You know what I mean? I haven't encountered anybody who has the perspective to the way that he does. Even like he said, Nazi Mitzvah. They agree on certain things, certain aspects of it, but they also disagree on other aspects of it. So, you know, it is what it is, and it was powerful. You have any closing words?
Yeah, we'll probably do a commentary on this video, and
also Zechariah 5, because that was brought into it, and we kind of just wanted to allow him to build his foundation. Because if we literally just pick out everything and debate on it, we would have been here all night. You see what I'm saying? We already had a late start, so it was cool. But we're gonna go into we're going to go to an exegetical breakdown of Zechariah 5, which we've done in the past, but we haven't done it in a while, so we want to get into it. We got videos breaking down the whole book of Zechariah through the Spirit, but Zechariah 5 is a very important chapter, and I definitely like to reproduce it soon. Next week, we won't be in class. We'll be on the streets. And next week is the summit. All right, anybody who can come down to this summit, man. Through the Spirit, it's going to be beautiful. The 18th to the 21st, Thursday to Sunday, it's going to be powerful. So we'll be on the streets next Friday, and then I got Atlanta the coming weekend. So y'all in the South, man, get out to Atlanta. That Saturday, January the 27th. Lord, when are we going to be on the streets at 5 Points with the brothers from HOI in the Sicarii South, brothers. So I'm sure there'll be class that day before, but we ain't gonna do no debates. So probably when I come back, we'll get into Zechariah 5 and a few more things. And I definitely got some lessons planted in the spirit for optimal edification. So
wait, real quick.
Scars are for sale.
Get them deaconsicari.com, and all 4 albums are for sale. If you
for free.
I'm sorry, for free. All 4 albums are for free. Get your scarf.
Get you a scarf. Get all the albums.
Get your hair wrap on. Get all the albums. And yeah, I feel good.
I feel good. And don't cross dress like, what's the name?
Don't cross dress like David Woods. I can't wait to isolate that part.
They should be celebrating
part,
Christmas.
That part and that part.
Yeah, that's great.
And how he admitted the Gentiles. That
or Israelites.
Israelites. Northern Kingdom Israelites.
That's right. So that's beautiful.
So sometimes it's good to just have a discussion because they get comfortable and they start confessing. That they want to be Israelites.
That's right.
See?
That's right.
So you start off.
LeBron know he a Jake, man. With that, word to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and say shalom.